Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first music edition of Observations from the Fence Post. And I am your host, Robert Shoup. Today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite rock albums of all time by one of my favorite groups of all time. And the group I'm referring to is one of my favorite bands, The Who. And the record I'll be talking about today is a record called Who's Next. One of the reasons I picked Who's Next was Who's Next turned 50 years old this year on August 14th. So Who's Next was released on August 14th in 1971, and it's become quite a staple of music on the classic rock stations. Four of the songs on the record are frequently played on classic rock. And one of those four is probably be playing as we speak on some classic rock station around the world. So that is kind of the reason I picked Who's Next. Now, as far as being a counselor, I like to look at deeper meaning sometime, or messages if we can. And one thing I've always taken away from this record is never give up on a good idea. Once again, we should never give up on a good idea. If you've got a good idea, stick with it and try to see it through. So that's kind of what happened with this record. It was originally going to be another rock opera concept record. The Who had just previously done one in '69 called Tommy. Tommy was a rock opera, a double album rock opera. It became a movie, became a Broadway play. And so they kind of liked that idea. It helped them become very successful, put them on the map financially. And the band grew as a result of that record. And they were wanting to do, or not they, Pete Townshend, the composer and guitarist for The Who, he wanted to do another concept record. That concept was called Lifehouse. It was a pretty complicated science fiction story that he just quite couldn't get across to music media critics, even the band's manager, Kit Lambert. He just had a hard time getting the full concept idea through. And when it didn't work, they abandoned the idea of a concept record and just released a standard studio album, which is what we now know is as Who's Next. So, okay, so that's a little bit of history, and once again, going back to that theme, never give up on a good idea. This album became pretty big seller for the band. It's got 4 songs that are pretty popular to this day. Those 4 songs are Baba O'Riley, Bargain, Behind Blue Eyes, and Won't Get Fooled Again. In fact, for you fans of the CSI franchise on television, the CSI creator is a big Who fan, and he uses Who songs as his theme songs. And 2 theme songs for CSI are from Who's Next, and that is on CSI New York, they use the song Baba O'Riley, and on CSI Miami, they use the song Won't Get Fooled Again, and those are the bookends to this album. Okay. As you see, I got a lot of copies. This is my original vinyl. It's not an original vinyl. I'm sure it was a much later pressing, but this is the vinyl to Who's Next. This was the first CD released of Who's Next in the 80s, and this was the first CD I ever bought. I bought this before I even had a CD player because I knew that when I got that CD player, this was the first record I was going to play on that CD. Later on in 1996, they remastered the album and added some bonus tracks, and this is the 1996 edition of Who's Next. Okay. In 1999, they actually released a wonderful making of the album on DVD, and this is that DVD. This is the making of Who's Next, and it's just got all sorts of trivia for Who fan buffs, and it's really neat to see them go back and listen to isolated tracks on the master tapes. It's really, so if you like that sort of stuff in music, and if you're a Who fan, I do recommend the DVD making of Who's Next. And then, of course, later on in 2003, they released what they call Who's Next? The Deluxe Edition. It is a 2 CD set that includes the original record, bonus tracks from the recording sections in both New York and in London, and then there are some live cuts from an experiment they were doing at the Young Vic Theatre in England, where they were just trying to create some vibes with the audience and the new music, and some of those live recordings are make up disc 2 on what is known as the Who's Next Deluxe Edition. Okay, so kind of reviewing Who's Next, let's start off with the first song. The first song is known as Baba O'Riley. Many people miss this as a trivia question when radio stations do identify the name of this song, be the first person or third caller to identify this song, and they'll drop the needle onto to Baba O'Riley, and sure enough, inevitably, someone's going to call in and go, "Oh, that's Teenage Wasteland." So it's kind of the nickname is Teenage Wasteland because that's part of the lyrics. But the song itself, song number 1, side 1, is Baba O'Riley. Now that's kind of a funny name because that name is not mentioned in the song, and it's an homage to 2 people. It's an homage to Meher Baba. He was an Indian guru that Pete Townshend liked, and an homage to Terry Riley, who was a composer, particularly using minimalist synthesizer work. So, in fact, one of the things Who's Next is known for, because it's the first time the Who really got into it, is its use of a synthesizer, particularly on tracks like Baba O'Riley and Won't Get Fooled Again. In fact, if you've ever been to a live show of The Who, as soon as that synth track kicks in, I mean, the crowds just go nuts because they know they've got Baba O'Riley coming up or Won't Get Fooled Again coming up, and it's both are some really good synth tracks to the song. So, and those tracks were they used an ARP synthesizer for those tracks, on those tracks. So, the first song is Baba O'Riley. It also has a guest member on it. It has a man by the name of Dave Arbus. He plays that ending violin work towards the end of the song, and it is just fantastic. Baba O'Riley is also a song I kind of refer to as a build song. It starts off with 1 instrument, then it builds with 2, you get the vocals, and it keeps adding instruments until by the end you have this crescendo of all the instruments playing together, and it's a crowd pleaser. It's a fun song on a personal level. That's a song that I can relate to with my daughter. That's her favorite Who song, and I really appreciate that when sometimes we're riding in the car and she's playing her music, she'll sneak in Baba O'Riley. So that's kind of neat. Second song on the record is called Bargain. Bargain is a very spiritual song that Pete Townshend has said is about the connection between man and God. In fact, the Christian rock band Res Band in the 70s, they covered Bargain and would play it in their live shows because it really has a nice, deep spiritual message. It's one of the staple songs on the radio, and man, do I love the galloping beat that that Keith Moon, the drummer, plays on the song. I haven't talked about the members of the Who. This is the classic Who lineup of Pete Townshend on guitar, Roger Daltrey on lead vocals, John Entwistle on bass, and Keith Moon on drums. Sadly, Keith Moon passed away in the 70s. John Entwistle passed away in the 2000s, and we do still have Roger and Pete kicking it around as the Who, which I'm very personally grateful for. Anyway, so the second song on the record was a song called Bargain. Third song on the record is it's called Love Ain't for Keeping. You get to hear just how good Pete is on the acoustic guitar. That's one of his skills, is his acoustic guitar work. And Love Ain't for Keeping is a love song. Frankly, it's a pretty love song. So that comes around next on the record. Uh, on side 1, track 3, Love Ain't for Keeping. Okay, side 1, track 4 is called My Wife. It's the only song that was not part of the Lifehouse project that's on the record. It's written by bass player John Entwistle, sung by bass player John Whistle, and features French horns played by John Entwistle of The Who, as he was a French horn player in his school days. So it's basically a song he wrote about basically his wife being angry at him after a particular not being able to contact him after a particular show. So it's a fun song. It was always a great live pleaser when Entwistle would break out My Wife. It's in fact one of the great live versions is on one of their records called The Kids Is Alright. Live compilation record, and the live version of My Wife is, man, it's killer. It's heavy. Okay, side 1 ends with a song called "The Song Is Over." That's the only song from this record that I have not seen the band played live. I'm not for sure if they have ever played it live as a band. It's beautiful song. That's part of the Lifehouse project, and features one of my favorite lyrics by Pete that goes, accepting one note, pure and easy, playing so free, like a breath rippling by. So that's the closing on side 1 is The Song Is Over. And I wish they had played it live, but that's what it is. Okay, starting side 2, we have a song called Getting in Tune. Man, if you want to hear a good example of a melodic bass line, where the bass line is really covering a very pretty melody, Getting in Tune is it. Now, it talks about getting in tune to the straight and narrow, the piano. And on this song, as well as The Song Is Over, we have another guest on the record, the late, great session player, Nicky Hopkins. He was a piano player, played session work for many of the British bands, including The Who, Rolling Stones. A fantastic piano player, and he really puts it out there on Getting in Tune. So between John Entwistle's melodic bass and Nicky Hopkins' piano, you've got a really, really pretty song with Getting in Tune. And as I mentioned, Nicky also played on piano on The Song Is Over. I forgot to mention that when I was covering The Song Is Over. Next up on the record is a song called Going Mobile. Watch the Police and the Taxman Miss Me, I'm mobile. What I like about this song is the bass of this song, the acoustic guitar, the bass guitar, the drums, and the lead vocal by Pete Townshend was all done in a single live take in the studio. Later on, the synth to the song was added, as well as the electric guitar through the synth, giving it this wah-wah sound. Was added later, but the main crux of the song, the bass of the song, was a live one-take studio shot of Pete, John, and Keith doing their stuff, and frankly it's impressive, particularly when Keith has the ability to go with either the acoustic or the bass player, and yet it all fits in. It's something else to hear, and it's a fun song. Next song is one of their staple songs on the radio. It's a song called Behind Blue Eyes. Starts off really soft and ends with the band in full force. It's been said that this is probably the quietest 2 minutes Keith Moon has ever had to endure in his life, because he doesn't play early on the song, as it starts out in very much ballad, and the whole song is a ballad, but it ends with a strong full band performance. And one neat thing that was pointed out on the DVD is how Keith does all his noodling during the verses, and not when, and he plays it pretty straight between the verses on the last part of the song, and it's really something to listen to if you're just looking for something different than usual. Usually drummers flower up when the vocalist is not singing, but Keith is doing his little noodling while Roger's singing, and on the DVD it just gives Roger the biggest grin. Last song on the album is one of my favorite rock anthems of all time. You can argue with me, but it has the best scream ever recorded on a rock and roll song, and that song is Won't Get Fooled Again. It is a powerhouse song. It's usually their closing song of each Who's show before they go off and come back for an encore. It's usually the closer of the main set. And I've seen it performed at every Who show, at the solo Roger Daltrey show, and it never ever fails to deliver. It's a power chord song. It is fierce. It's introspective. It's political, and I think that's why it kind of has a timelessness to it. It speaks to you no matter the generation, and that's the power of any good song. It's its ability to speak to you across years and across generations. And so that wraps up the main record as Who's Next. Like I said, the remastered has some bonus materials. They originally started recording the record in New York City with their manager, Kit Lambert. Those sessions fell apart pretty quickly. Kit was doing a lot of heavy drugs, and Pete was really concerned with Keith Moon, who loved to experiment with drugs that he was introduced to. So he was really worried about that. It created a pretty serious falling out between Kit Lambert, their longtime Who manager, and the band. And basically that was in their relationship. So they packed up out of New York and went back home to England. They hired the amazing producer, Glenn Johns, who just sorted through material, helped them pick out good stuff, and they re-recorded what we now know as Who's Next. Anyway, some of the on the remasters, they have some of those recordings from the New York sessions, and which were interesting, different takes. The Won't Get Fooled Again take is, it's radically different, just radically different. The Love Ain't for Keeping take was an electric take and not an acoustic take, and the electric take had Pete on lead vocals and not Roger. So that was one of the ones that was different. Now, one of my favorite bonus tracks was a cover of an old Motown song, "Baby Don't You Do It." Well, I believe it was Motown. I better be careful on that. It may not have been, but it was an old cover song called "Baby Don't You Do It." And on that song, they had a guest guitarist, Leslie West from Mountain. And man, can you, if you know Mountain, you can immediately know it's Leslie when he kicks in with his style of guitar. And so you got Pete power chording over "Baby Don't You Do It," and then you got Leslie West just flowering it up with his guitar flair. And there's the edited version and the full take version. Frankly, I like the edited version a little better. But you can get both of those on the reissues. Anyway, I know it was a long review. I hope to do more. Happy birthday. Happy 50th birthday to Who's Next. And other music reviews are probably going to be from 1971. One of my favorite, even though I was only 3, looking back on classic rock, it's one of my favorite years as far as musical output. Obviously, it was the 60s had closed with the 60s psychedelia, and the 70s was coming in, and you had the British invasion bands were going strong, certainly continuing to build their following and get bigger. You had American bands coming on and making their mark, and 1971 was a good year. So anyway, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to Observations from the Fence Post. I hope to do many, many more in different styles. Like I said, I hope to do some pure counseling videos, some book reviews, movie reviews, comic book reviews, and of course more musical album reviews. So thank you. Keep it between the ditches, and may you be blessed today, and peace to you and yours. So thank you very much, and you have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.